It's that time of the year. Ramadan is fast approaching, and today I've got 5 tips for you to have a successful Ramadan. Let's get into it. We are now in Sha'ban, and Ramadan is just around the corner. That means the month of Allah's abundant mercy is just around the corner. It's the month when we can bring real positive change in our lives. Now, there are a million things we could do to make the most of this month, but today I wanted to share my top 5 tips for having a successful Ramadan, a life-changing Ramadan. Let's get right into it with tip number 1. The first tip is to approach Ramadan with the right perspective. People usually don't say this, but Ramadan can come with a lot of pressure. Everyone is working hard and encouraging each other to do more. Everywhere you look, there's some reminder to put extra effort in Ramadan. Now, this is all excellent and important, but the reality is, if we're already self-conscious about our level of religiosity, if we already don't feel a closeness to Allah, this can put a lot of pressure on us. And you know what that does? That makes Ramadan feel like a burden. Ramadan should never be a burden. It is a gift. It is Allah opening the doors to His mercy for us. It is Allah saying, come, no matter what you've done, no matter where you are in your journey, come. If we come into Ramadan feeling like it's a burden, it is going to be a burden. But if we treat it like an opportunity, a chance to finally make the changes that we've been wanting to make, if we treat it like a friend welcoming us with open arms, then we'll be ready, we'll be excited for its arrival, and we'll be running with open arms towards Allah's mercy in this month. So that's the first tip. The second tip is to make a plan. Let's say you want to go out to get groceries. Do you just hop in your car and start driving in any random direction? No, of course not. You wouldn't reach your destination. You need directions. You need to have a plan. And just like that, if you want to make the most Ramadan, you need to have a plan. And it's not difficult. I'll break down the steps. First, you need to take out some time to plan for Ramadan. Planning for Ramadan is a serious step, and you need to be actively engaged in the process. So take some time out to do this. Take a pen or paper or some note-taking app and start by just listing out all the goals you want to achieve during this month. So for example, you might want to finish the Quran in the month. A lot of people have that goal. Or you might want to make sure that you pray every prayer in the masjid. Whatever it is, write it all down. And make sure these are SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. If you need a refresher on how to set SMART goals, I'll put a link in the description below. So once you've got that list of SMART goals, you need to start thinking about your average day during Ramadan. What would a normal day during Ramadan look like for you? What would your schedule be? When would you wake up? Would you have a different work schedule? When would you get some free time in the day? And what time in the day would you be most active? So think about these things and use this to create a schedule of what the average day in Ramadan would look like for you. Then for each of the goals that you listed, write down how you plan to fit that goal into that daily schedule. So for example, right now before Ramadan, you might come home from work and you've got some time to relax. Then during Ramadan, that free relaxation time slot might be the perfect time to fit in reading some Quran, for example. The more detailed you get with this, the better. Let's say you know that it takes you half an hour to read 1 juz of the Quran. So now you know that you gotta find a half-hour time slot in your schedule every day during Ramadan. Do this for all your goals and you'll have a clear plan for Ramadan, a clear idea of what you want to achieve and how you're gonna work on achieving it every single day. Tip number 3 is to remove distractions. It's a simple fact. If you want to achieve anything, you need to be focused. You need to make sure that you're not being distracted. Just like that, if you want a successful Ramadan, you need to remove distractions. So in the previous tip, we made a plan for Ramadan. Now, to make sure that you stick with the plan, that you actually achieve your goals, you need to make sure that you remove any distractions that would come in the way of that. Again, it's simple. Ask yourself, what are the things that usually distract me? What are the time wasters in my life? And be totally honest with yourself. It's only going to help you. This is not for anyone else. So for you, it might be social media, or your phone might be a big distraction, or maybe video games or your friends. Once you've got that figured out, ask yourself, how bad would it be if I just didn't have this during the few days of Ramadan? Would it be so awful if I didn't have Instagram or Facebook for a few days? Would it be so difficult if I didn't follow along with my favorite show during the month of Ramadan? See, anything worth having necessarily comes with some degree of sacrifice, some degree of hardship. You want to get closer to Allah this month, you want a successful Ramadan, you're going to have to make some sacrifice. You'd have to give up the things that would get in the way of you focusing on Allah this month. You already made a plan in the previous step, and just having a plan would be a big help in keeping you focused and protecting you from getting distracted. But you know yourself best, you know how you get distracted, what kind of things distract you. So expect the distractions, they're still going to be there. Expect them now and do something about them now before Ramadan begins. So for example, if it's a particular social media app that distracts you, delete it for a bit. There's programs out there that help you limit your time spent on a particular app or a website. Use those. Or if your distraction is your friends, just tell them honestly that during Ramadan you might not be as free as you normally are. It can also help to ask someone to keep you on track with this. A spouse or family member, someone who, when they see you getting distracted, they'll remind you of your commitment to your goals during this month. Tip number 4 is to talk to Allah. As you make your daily schedule following the previous tips, make sure you take out some time every single day to really talk to Allah. Think about this. Imagine every single day you took out some time to sit down with a friend and then you said the exact same thing every single time. The exact same words every time. Would you be engaged? Would you feel a closeness to that friend? Of course not. But that's exactly what prayer is for so many of us. It's movements and words without any personal connection. That's because we're not truly talking to Allah in our prayers. We all have things we want to express, fears, concerns we want to share. Allah is there, Allah is listening. He cares for us more than our own mothers. And yet we never truly open up in front of Allah. So that's exactly what you'll need to do. Take out a few minutes every day to do this. Find a quiet place, a place you won't be distracted and disturbed. And then just talk. Just say what's on your mind. Whatever worries, fears, concerns that are on your shoulders, just tell them to Allah. The way you would say it to a friend that you trust or a family member, just say it. Here's the thing, you can open up to a close friend and they may or may not be able to help. But Allah is the master of all things. Allah is the one who's moving the sun and the moon. Isn't He the one we should be talking to? I mean, He knows it all anyways, but when we do our part, when we take the steps to open up to Him, we'll never be let down. That's guaranteed. So make time every single day in Ramadan to really truly open up to Allah, and you'll feel closer to Him than you've ever felt before. So the last tip is to start now and start slow. Let's say you want to run a marathon. Do you just show up on the day of and take a shot at it? No, of course not. You spend days and weeks working towards it, slowly doing the practice. If you just showed up on the day of, you wouldn't get anywhere. Ramadan is the same thing. Don't expect to just show up on the first day and make great progress. You need to start early and start with slow steps. All the previous tips I mentioned can bring real change in your life. But here's the thing, change isn't easy. It's not easy to stop social media if you have a habit of being on it all day. It's not easy to stick to a schedule if you've never had a schedule before. If you don't ease into it with small steps, you'll burn out and you'll lose all motivation to keep going. So instead of waiting to jump in when Ramadan begins and then realizing that you don't have the energy to keep this up and then you burn out, you should start doing these things now before Ramadan, taking small steps, not making giant changes, and trying to get to a point where it becomes easy by the time Ramadan comes around. The Sahaba used to prepare for Ramadan months in advance because they knew that when the month of Ramadan came around, they wanted to be in the ideal position to make the most of it. So from that perspective, we're already kind of late to the game. But still, let's make the most of what we have. Let's start implementing these steps now. Look, we have to be honest with ourselves. We're going to stumble. We're going to fail. We're going to not hit our goals. And that's fine. That's reality. That's okay. Because over time, with practice, we're going to get better. But you shouldn't start practicing when you get in Ramadan. So do the practice now, before Ramadan. Make the mistakes now so that when Ramadan comes, you're ready to make the most of it. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you saw, please check out my channel for more practical tips for success in this life and the next. I'll end by praying that Allah makes this Ramadan better for us than all the Ramadans that have come in the past. That we achieve all our goals this month and that we're able to bring real change in our lives. And that we leave Ramadan better than the way we were when we entered it. Closer to our Lord than we've ever been. And that through that we become successful servants. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.